know, our first round of the day, when the players get set, I'm not sure they are just yet, is going to be Nigel Richards against Darrell Day, one of the top players in the standings, chasing Nigel. Darrell is currently in fourth place with a 10.5 and 3.5 record. Weibin, those half, it's very awkward to say half in a Scrabble standings. You can talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so half really means a draw, and I think the chances of any particular game ending in a draw, I mean, if you're talking about two players that are equally skilled, I mean, people have said it's about 0.5% chance of that happening. So that's really, really unlikely. And what happens when you have a draw, it basically means that a lot of time your spread doesn't really matter that much, because the spread difference, the total spread difference actually, determines your standings quite often. But if you have a half game, then sometimes the spread doesn't matter as much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely right. So the spread that we've been alluding to is our tiebreaker, your cumulative margin of victory. When you tie a game, all of a sudden, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to have the exact same win total as any other player. So yeah, you can start playing a little bit more crazily to go for wins. You don't have to worry about your tiebreaker as much. Could look for that in this upcoming game. If Darrell were to get down in the game early, the fact that he has a tie could allow him to more aggressively open the board at a deficit. That could actually help Nigel a lot to bolster his own spread tiebreaker, which is already in a fantastic state right now. Of course, that's going to be the case if you never lose any games. But not only is Nigel winning games, he's winning them by a lot with a spread tiebreaker of 1,501. That is roughly 800 points higher than his next closest competitor. So here we go. Let's get started. Nigel going first against Darrell. And Weibin, if this is anything like what Nigel showed us yesterday, we are in for another treat.
Yeah, I was looking at yesterday's games. Really shocking moves and really shocking, I don't know, like very, very high level play from Nigel. That last game, he was playing it so quickly, placing his opponent Dustin on such time pressure, and the last, second last play for him, setting up the C, right, SIC, and then drawing into a bingo to play out. That was really phenomenal.
Yeah, totally true on both counts. Several moves that I already know I'm going to have my work cut out for me with my channel trying to chronicle some of these. But Nigel going first, and I feel like this is more impressive than it seems. If you're a North American lexicon player, this looks like Nigel is considering exchanging two eyes, which would be a very solid move. But if you're an international lexicon player, which Nigel also has every achievement that you could want from that dictionary as well, there are several playable bingos from this rack, including tirites and mirites. Nigel doesn't even seem to acknowledge the existence of those words, instead correctly exchanging two eyes. We've been pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he's just able to differentiate the dictionaries so easily, and with no confusion at all. Yeah, I mean, if I'm in the same position, I think, have a high chance of losing my turn, I think.
So over to Darrell. Darrell quickly plays Oh-Ho, which is surely one of the best options he can make here. The thing that I like about Darrell, and maybe he's sort of aware of how some of the games have gone on the stream yesterday, is that he made that play extremely quickly. We definitely saw yesterday a bunch of games where players gave a great effort against Nigel, playing extremely well throughout the game, but it took too much time off of the clock. And when it came time to make those pivotal endgame decisions, they just did not have enough time left in the tank to get there. So Darrell making this move fast, maybe we're going to see him continue to play fast to avoid the sort of end of game scenarios we saw yesterday, Weibin.
Yeah, do you think he watched some of the games from yesterday?
I'm not sure, but how quickly he played this move leads me to believe maybe, because I would normally be thinking kind of hard about, should I play Oho? Should I play Ohia? There's a number of things that you could do. Nigel is going to play Ratfish, 74 points. He draws that first blank, which he drew on his opening rack. So after exchanging 2 eyes, comes up with the first bingo of the game. It's worth noting, Weibin, that yes, Nigel is playing amazingly well, but it seems also that he is drawing very good tiles, which is necessary for anyone, no matter who you are, to have a 14-0 record in an expert field.
Yeah. Well, I think drawing well is part of it, but also, you know, being able to put your opponents under certain kinds of pressure. I think is like I saw in the games against Jackson. He set up Apex and he set up Equal. I think those plays, and especially if you're against like super high level opposition, you need to make some of these things to put your opponent under stress and to keep them on their toes. And I think Nigel is, besides being lucky, I think he also has a knack for finding these things really quickly and just being very decisive with them.
Yeah, that's totally true. You're spot on. Of course, we've seen Nigel win a bunch of games that maybe only he could win from a combination of incredibly accurate play and playing the moves that he winds up making so fast that it puts that pressure on his opponents. And oh man, this is a big trap right here for Darrell. So Nigel is going to play just can on top of grab. For Darrell, ex-apted is a valid word. And if he knows that, he may be liable to try to play ex-apting right here, even though it is not valid. It makes total sense he would do that because, again, you can inflect with ED, but not ing, or even, I don't think ex-apt is even a word either. It's just expat. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like Darrell has gotten away from that. To his credit, I thought that could be a serious risk, Weibin, especially against Nigel, where if you have any inkling that such a huge play would be valid, you kind of want to go for it.
Yeah, I was actually curious about Nigel's choice of Ratfish. Like, I mean, sure. He did have other options, for example, Barris in the same turn, yeah, which right. Would have gone, yeah, and wouldn't have exposed the vowel to the triple lane. So I'm just wondering, like, what you think about that, Will? Like, why did he choose to play Ratfish?
Very interesting choice for sure. I think part of it is, if you imagine the other option for Nigel of Fairest going across the board, it exposes E, S, and T on the board for 8-letter words, 3 of the best bingo tiles available, whereas Ratfish hides the S internally and doesn't expose an E. So we're going to see Darrell play Axe here. But just to continue that, also, Darrell's opening play of 080 does suggest that he almost certainly kept 4 low point tiles, which makes this scoring spot a little bit less dangerous than it might normally be if Darrell's rack was more random. So those could be some of the things he was thinking about. But I agree with you, Weibin. In general, you would not want to create such a big scoring spot for a consonant to go right here. So a curious choice, probably some rationale behind it. As Darrell plays Axe, balancing his rack nicely. He keeps a vowel in the I to play underneath there. So Nigel is going to bingo a second time, though, getting off to a great start, as he is wont to do. Nice play.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the play by Darrell. I mean, he played AX, which really, sometimes when people play against Nigel, they tend to think that you have to play very defensively. You have to shut down the board and try to beat him over a closed board. I think what Darrell did was exactly the opposite. I mean, he actually lasted the board open, and his leave was actually very productive for the board. I mean, he had the E of behind AX, and he also had the G open for his IN leave. So that really, it's advantageous to him. I mean, he's a bit unlucky that Nigel has a bingo, but and he picked up the Y. But otherwise, I think AX was quite a good play. I mean, from my point of view.
Yeah, a very. Oh, what's he gonna do here?
Piety.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. This is a nice play again by Darrell. I actually totally agree with your assessment of Axe, Weibin, making that E hook, which Darrell knows he has the E's. And if Nigel did not have an E, which he didn't, there's very, it's going to be somewhat unsatisfying for him to block that spot. Whereas in this exact situation where Nigel has a bingo somewhere else on the board, had Darrell drawn just a little bit better, he could have been responding with a massive double-double hooking Axe right now. Instead, he plays Piety, and despite the 2 early bingos, the score really isn't that far out of hand if Darrell can draw something good. And I would not necessarily classify his draw as something good there with the triplicated E's and duplicated N's. But meanwhile, we have a potential huge play with that H, and down it comes for Nigel, Weibin.
Yeah, that's just huge points. And I think, in this kind of situations, you just take the points. The Q is definitely something that you don't want on this rack, but, you might draw something. I mean, all the U's are unseen at the moment, so you might pick it up. And there's no reason to play something like cat for 12 points when there's so many points on offer.
Yeah, and look what he's drawn. A fantastic draw to go with his U-less Q. Not only a U to come help the Q, but also the second blank, an S and a J. So Nigel now with an embarrassment of riches as this game is starting much like some of the last 14 have, with Nigel in the lead and threatening here. It looks like, as he often does, Weibin, he's foreshadowing that he would like to play, if nothing changes about this board, quota through the T of Piety, leaving SJ blank. Seems as good as anything to me. I'm not sure. So Darrell is the one who is on turn. Really can't say. I feel like Darrell's game plan has been very good. He's trying to play quickly, confidently, openly, and he has plenty of time on his clock. He just has not drawn anywhere close to the tiles that Nigel has. And let's see, he's going to have his work cut out for him with Nigel holding all those goodies.
Yeah, do you reckon they're going to be watching Nigel the whole day?
Well, I guess that's up to him, and it's up to all of you to a certain extent. We definitely want to emphasize again that as amazing as it is to watch Nigel play at such a high level and do the impossible of continue to go through these fields, extremely difficult fields of grandmasters without a single loss, there are great games taking place as well from the Collins division that we also want to show you at some point. So we're going to play it by ear. Darrell playing Gane at the top of the board. Could have played Gene there as well, but those two plays are very similar. I might have opted to keep ANE instead of ENE, but really splitting hairs. And let's see.
He picks up so many more E's. Oh, that's unlucky. Yeah.
So I don't think that Nigel's going to take too long for his next play, unless, Weibin, do you think there's a chance he would pivot to just playing Joe here instead of what he was thinking about before with quota, keeping AQSU blank, I guess?
Wow. I actually did not think about that. I mean, quota just seems like score so many more points. Yeah, but I'm looking at the computer analysis that you're sharing with me, and quota, somehow, Joe rather, I think, seems to be doing so well on the simulation. I think the QUAS combination, I mean, the thing is that you already have quads, right? I mean, QUATS. Quads is not in WoW, but you already have QUAS, which is really nice, and a blank. So you really have such great potential just by playing JO. Yeah.
So quota, he is going to go with quota. I think the pause from him there was just assessing, is it going to be worth keeping that nice QUS blank combination? He's opted for 16 extra points, and this is particularly agonizing for Darrell, who has a U on his rack here, but it does not look like he has a play off of the Q, which is unbelievable to think. You've even got that U in hand, but there just isn't anything available. So could we see Darrell exchange tiles, fed up with all the vowels that he has? I guess technically it might be okay to play something like careened right here off of car, which is not an easy play to generate, but it's kind of nice to score some points and leave UE on your rack in case you're able to draw something to the queue. That seems reasonable. It looks to me, though, that Darrell might be considering exchanging, which is probably a combination of a solid option and also a little bit of a frustration choice, Weibin.
Yeah, I think probably you want to find some kind of E dump, in some way. Whether you keep the U or not is another question, but you want to play off some of the E, so like EY, EE, EYED, EYEN, those are plays that you can all consider, in this kind of situation. Those will also keep the U, which will set you up really well for the next turn. Yeah, I think exchanging is probably, not sure whether I would do in this situation. Partially, I mean, if you look at what he's intending to keep as well, I mean, maybe if he keeps a DE, that doesn't really have much play on the board, I imagine. Yeah. Just going back to the JO versus the quota move as well, I think perhaps Nigel's choice was also influenced by trying to block the T and setting up for his own S, which I think it's maybe some defensive considerations from that point of view, and also blocking that line on top of Opal. So there could be some of these thoughts that went through his head as well.
That is a very good point, in fact, because before quota hits the board, there's really just the one S hook, which is okay. Now there's another one, and Darrell is going to play I'd, which I think is definitely called for here. So good job by him. It seemed like he was very seriously considering exchanging, but the 20 points are nice to sort of keep him in range. He doesn't know that Nigel has another S and blank on his rack. He could easily draw into something like that and maybe fight his way back. And those extra 20 points could be nice. And yeah, Darrell, not the tiles that he needs. However, he did draw the Y actually, which is one of the better tiles, that you could draw holding UE in reserve. So I don't feel like it's that likely that Nigel is going to find a way to block this Q. So Darrell is going to very likely quickly score very, very well on his next turn. But yeah, Nigel has that J. I feel like it's kind of tricky, Weibin, to see where to play that J productively. Is it possible that Nigel would ever consider burning his blank and playing something like jams here? That seems kind of crazy, but it scores 52 points, which is a fair shot better than almost anything else.
Yeah, I think in this case, probably the S is still valuable, I think. I mean, there's still two lines for the S. If you want to, I think if you want to play off the blank, probably, I don't know, I might still keep the S personally. Yeah, but he chooses to play MM, which is actually, it's a really reasonable play because, you keep your blank, you keep your S, you keep the J, all for potential of bingo next turn, or just a high scoring play the next turn. I think it just keeps all your weapons in the arsenal.
Yeah, just to emphasize, it looks like Nigel's play of just the M's was actually approved by the computer engine. So as usual, Nigel evaluating in ways that few humans can, incredibly accurately and quickly. Meanwhile, Darrell plays his Q play for a very solid 48 points that gets him a little bit closer. And again, despite holding S blank on his rack, Nigel does not have a bingo, and he is not yet landing that knockout blow. Darrell has drawn poorly a bunch of turns in a row here, but despite all the nice tiles on Nigel's rack, no bingo for him to put the game out of reach. So Darrell still hanging on. He doesn't know, how close Nigel has come. Nigel's going to play Rusk for 39, leaving JL blank. This again looks like a great play, Weibin, but JL blank does not become a bingo that often.
No, not at all. I think the thing is Nigel has still managed to score pretty well. I mean, even without needing to use his blank, and I mean keeping the blank and even the J as well. It's kind of, I mean, the J kind of clunks up his rack a little bit, but he'll find that, I think he's just waiting for the right time, waiting for the right opportunity to pounce, and if he has to use a blank when he does so, then he will do so. I think so he has to, so you can see that he's really very patient. Some of us would use the blank pretty quickly and try to maximize our points, and we think to ourselves that we'll draw another another set of good tiles. But sometimes I think Nigel shows us that being patient is really yields pretty good rewards, I think.
Yeah, he is such a master, Nigel, of deferring his points to next turn. I feel like he does that on a regular basis, as we see Anion come down. 17 points for Darrell. Not a lot of good options for him, and you can see that despite using his S on the previous turn, Nigel is now poised, I should say, to potentially land that knockout blow. He also now has the option of, if he wants to play his J, are we going to see him delay gratification again? It's hard because I think you can't actually play, well, he could play Gel. Yeah, Gel might be worth it here, in fact, scoring quite nicely and leaving the blank for next turn. It's not a gimme that Nigel is necessarily going to plop down jellies and haps here. You are going to score a lot of points with that play, but we could easily see Jill or Gel come down instead from him here to illustrate the point that you were making, Weibin.
Yeah, if you look at the pool, like there are no S's left, no blanks left. So basically the Haps line is basically his, I mean, and of course there's possibility of bingo from the D and S for Darrell, but yeah, he has really a commanding position if he keeps that lead. So I think deferring the few points, 30 something points, but it's definitely something that I would do as well in this position.
Makes sense. That is the direction he goes, and so he draws the V, a couple other tiles. Meanwhile, it has been pretty unrelentingly tough draws here for Darrell. He's going to play Fee on top of Gel, which looks like his best available play. That says a lot about the grimness of his draws and of his position. 28 points for Darrell, who I really can't point to any move that he's made. I guess Anion maybe had some slightly more accurate plays, but the game is certainly somewhat out of reach by that point. So Darrell came into this game with a good plan: play fast, play aggressively. Nigel has just once again drawn and played, more importantly, extremely well. There are definitely games he won yesterday where he had prolonged periods of time with very weak tiles, Weibin. So I definitely don't want to be so reductive as to say he's just drawn great every game. That is empirically not the case. He won a few games that maybe he had no business winning.
Yeah, the thing is, if you are actually playing against Nigel, you actually cannot tell, like, if he has really bad tiles or really good tiles. I mean, you can only tell by how many points he's scoring. But um, essentially, sometimes he really sets himself up for such huge plays, and even though he's scoring like 22 in a turn, his next turn he's scoring like 30 something, 40 something, 50 something so often. And I think that's really the hallmark of a great player, somebody who really maximizes his score over many turns, and I think, yeah, somehow he manages to optimize all of that so well and do it so quickly.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. He is thinking hard on this turn, probably just looking around a little bit for bingos, and he is electing to play Devi for 29 again. The engine really likes that play. It's about the most he can score, and keeping IT blank is certainly going to become a bingo off of, for example, the S of Sigonids looks very appetizing to potentially play an 8-letter bingo. I would love to see him find a 10-letter bingo off of Bar Weibin. Wouldn't that be a treat?
Yeah, that's the only thing that I like kind of have not seen in this tournament so far. Like Nigel play like a word between like with through like 3 disconnected letters, and playing a 10 or that kind of thing. So maybe he's actually like fishing for that, just to entertain the crowd.
Yeah, so let's see. The Jello hook. That's fun. 22 points for Darrell, seeing that hook there. But yeah, looks like Nigel is aware that he can play striated off of the S of Sigonids. So that is, although Darrell has been gamely battling on here, that should definitely. Oh, look at that though. Tow rope. That's cool. That is a valid bingo. Unfortunately for Darrell, I'm not sure where that plays. And if you see striated be played here, I don't believe there's enough room for tow rope to fit anywhere. Not quite. It's just one square away. I don't think any other overlap combination is going to allow Darrell to play that, which is a rite of passage as a Scrabble player, Weibin, to have a really nice 7-letter word on your rack and nowhere to put it.
Yeah, I think it's worse when you can fit 6 of the tiles there, and there's was one of the letters that can't fit, right? So it's this game is really I think Darrell did really well. He's played quite quickly. I think he's also played quite accurately. No real major mistakes from my point of view. So I think but if you just look at the tiles that he's pulling, just quite unlucky this game. And Nigel, if you give him the tiles, he's just gonna keep running, and you're not gonna be able to catch him.
Yep, absolutely agreed. You alluded to it earlier, Weibin. You are one of the players, if not the most. I know you're top 2 or 3 in Nigel's international tournament record. You've played him something between like somewhere between 50 and 100 times or something like that.
So not that many. I think
not
about
that many.
Yeah, no, but I haven't played that many people internationally. I think he's one of the most frequently played for me, and I think at least 30 times. Yeah, at least 30 times. Yeah.
Very few can say that. That's a lot of games against him. So you could be considered one of the foremost experts on what it is like to actually sit across the board from him. And surely some games in that set, Nigel has drawn very good tiles and just made it literally impossible to keep up with him.
Yeah, I think so. Somehow I think, I don't know, when I play against him, maybe it's because I'm not like afraid or anything, but I think yeah, we tend to have some. We have had some very very close games as well, I think, and those are the ones that I remember a bit more. Yeah, the ones that blowouts typically I forget pretty quickly.
That's probably the best way. And you mentioned something important there, which is to play without fear. We had a couple of times yesterday. I wouldn't say that we had anybody actually play with fear necessarily. I actually feel like we saw a number of very good challenges to Nigel in games that he won. In particular, I would say the number one thing we saw was players giving him a great fight and then simply running out of time to evaluate positions at the end of the game, which is a huge factor and maybe underappreciated a little bit about Nigel's win rate. Is not just how accurately he plays, but how quickly he arrives at the best plays. And that definitely generates a lot of wins for him that he would not get otherwise. So I feel like somewhere in the How to Beat Nigel Richards playbook, which I have a video entitled that, I think I should have maybe talked a little bit more about making sure you play with good pace so that you have time to devote. And I do feel that gets to your point, though. Playing without fear means trusting your instincts. Don't think for 5 minutes on a move that would normally take you 1 minute to play just because you're going up against one particular opponent. Not sure how you feel about that.
Yeah, and I think well, I think it's a useful skill to have also. Like in general, like well, for me, it's I guess I had quite a bit of opportunity to play annotated games on stream, when I was pretty young, and I think that kind of made me, a little bit more fearless. Sometimes in a bad way, of course, right? But I think the thing is that you just have to play each position as as the positions are, and just try your best to maximize, do the best that you can in the particular situation. And I think sometimes the tiles, are pretty good and all that, and you can take advantage of that. But sometimes you just have no opportunity to do anything, and you just play on, and hope the next game is better. And I think this is one of the games for Darrell. He started off, and I think he had some chances in the early parts of the game, but as the game went on, you could see that I think the tiles really showed him that this is not really your game this time.
Yeah, Darrell wishing he had an E right about now, as some of you in the chat are pointing out. Poetizer, actually a valid word, but as almost fitting the way this game has gone, of course, there would be no E. Nigel not about to allow that to happen. Nigel played Verl a moment ago. I'm sure that he was thinking about something that he needed to block. I haven't actually figured out what that is yet, but it is kind of interesting that he emptied the bag there to do it. Maybe just no better option that allowed him to do that. But we are in the end game phase right now. Darrell with the Z on his rack, and Nigel, again, another one of his amazing skills, of course, is his ability to play end games extremely accurately and quickly. That definitely gets another chunk of games won that you might not normally see. Turns out that the best end game play for Darrell here, which is very counterintuitive, is actually not Zori. It would be replot here through the L at the bottom of the board, which would follow up with two options for your Z play, Tiz, or I'm not even sure what the other one might be, but that seems to be what the engine wants. Would Nigel have found that? I think every indication suggests yes, Weibin.
Yeah, I actually have no idea why that is the best play. I don't even see why the Z, the Z scoring 20 something is good. But sometimes these computers teach us all these things that we don't see at all, and that's why I think computer analysis is really helpful at our level, I think. But Nigel is better than a computer.
Yeah, seemingly he is at least as good. And again, the play of guilt that Nigel makes there. Let me get the scores updated. I apologize for that. Scores right now 504 to Nigel to 325 for Darrell. The computer engine did like Nigel's play of guilt as the best, and perhaps a clue as to why Zori is not better than some of the plays that score less is that Darrell does not have an outplay with these letters, amazingly. You would think that he would, but had he played replot, he would be going out this turn. And because he left these letters, he's going to give Nigel another chance to play something, for example, like Leno through the E here and get a few extra points. So that could be part of the reason. But yeah, that's all academic. It goes to show, right? Like sometimes the difference between winning and losing is playing the optimal end game, but that's actually kind of rare, Weibin. Usually it's just about the maximizing your tiebreaker, but that still matters, and that's why Nigel's spread tiebreaker is always so strong.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, if you're ahead in the game by like more than 150 or 200, you tend to be like, oh yeah, I'll just out in two, or just I'll just play whatever comes to my mind first. But you could be leaving quite a few points off the table, right? And I think that's the thing which over time it builds up, and that actually affects that sometimes the end game, the end of the tournament standings, the spread differences, and placings and all that. I know you just released a video recently, like just yesterday, right, about missing something that cost you 26 points. Yeah, and then that cost you $1,000. So that yeah, definitely it's painful. Can be very painful.
It's hard, right? It's hard in games where the outcome is not at stake to do the effort required to play an optimal endgame. Really, the only solution to that is to become so good at playing endgame that it doesn't actually tax you mentally to play the correct endgame. I feel like normally for most of us, it takes a lot of time and energy to solve these tricky endgame puzzles. And in classic Nigel fashion, the game is complete. Final score 517 to 345. Another win for Nigel. He moves his record up to 15-0. I believe I saw it mentioned that if you consider the World Cup and SPC and other, North American events to be sort of major events in North America, the last time a player in the top division had a perfect record through 2 days was Joel Sherman in 2011. So it's been literally 14 years since we've seen somebody start with a record as good as Nigel, and he wins another game here in the first round of the day. And the handshake there, Nigel, ever the good sportsman. As we heard yesterday, Weibin, Nigel reliant on his opponents to do the electronic score submission, which
right.
That's an interesting factoid as well.
And he played relying as well, his last move.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, his last move yesterday.
Yeah.
So I was also going to say, like in classic Nigel fashion, the tiles get squared almost immediately after the game. Like, like there's really not much to talk about when Nigel beats you by 150 most of the time. You're just like, oh, okay, I'll move on.
That's true, but I feel like that's also it's also Nigel's impulse to just square the tiles right up again, even if the game was incredibly interesting. He even then doesn't really feel like there's that much to discuss. He's just, as he said himself many times, he's just here to enjoy himself. He's having fun. He's not even taking himself that seriously. When we go to him and say, hey, how would you feel about being on the live stream a few extra times? He kind of shrugs his shoulders and says, sure, that sounds good to me. Any other person would probably say, ooh, okay, that's a little bit of a jolt of nervous energy. I have to be on the stream again. could not mind any less. So off he goes to take a break potentially. And yeah, as you said a couple times, that was a valiant effort by Darrell. He definitely did not have the tiles in this game to really compete. That's how it goes in Scrabble sometimes. We have this axiom of, how many games in Scrabble are available to win? How much luck is there in the game of Scrabble? Well, the napkin math, the very imprecise math that we sometimes give, is about half the games you play are going to be decided by who plays better in that game specifically. And then a quarter of the games, so we're up to 75% now, half decided by skill, half you're going to win because your tiles are too good. And then another quarter, your opponent is going to win because their tiles are too good. So that puts you at about 75% of games you're going to win, either because you draw too well or because you outplay your opponent. And what is Nigel's winning percentage? In North America, it's, I think, 74.7%, and in international play, it's 75.1 or something like that. So the napkin math, Weibin, might actually have an element of truth to it.
Yeah, I think I don't know, like there are games that he wins that he shouldn't be winning. I think there are just so many of that games. Hopefully, I mean, he is, I would say he is facing tougher and tougher opposition. Like, I mean, players that I see come to tournaments, I mean, they are getting really good at the words, getting really good at strategy, and I think maybe one day, like, we will pose really a huge challenge to him. And I think well, Will, you're looking to do that at upcoming World Championships, aren't you?
Well, we'll see how much challenge I can actually pose. It's, I've been somewhat, I haven't really gone into it that much on my YouTube channel, but I actually have a very good record against Nigel Richards. I've played him 8 times and I've won 6 of those games. And the explanation for that is very simple. I have drawn incredibly well against him. I've drawn so well, so many bingos, so many blanks. A lot of those games he has not really even had a chance. And really the ones he has had any chance to win, he has won both of those 2 games. So I wish I could say I had more of a secret to share about how to do it. But I guess the best thing that I could say for how is it possible for somebody to have a good record against Nigel is, we touched on it earlier. You have a very good record over a much higher sample size than 8 games, Weibin. And I think a lot of the answer is in just having no fear, playing fast, playing with confidence, respecting that, yes, Nigel is the greatest Scrabble player of all time, but in Scrabble, nobody is invulnerable, and there's going to be games that you can win if you just play your game, and you have to believe that that next game is going to be one of those. So, yeah, it's for the players here at this event, they have to have that belief that I'm going to be the one to make that first dent in Nigel's armor. We've got a player coming up in our next round in Jason Lee, who is very competent, confident, and I don't think he's going to be rattled playing against Nigel on the top board. So I think he's got a good chance to do it if he can draw the tiles to support him. So after that, our next round in the morning is between Nigel and Eric Goldstein, one of the more entertaining players on the circuit. How Eric is feeling about taking Nigel on, I'm not sure, but he is definitely going to give it his best effort and enjoy himself while he's at it. So those are currently our next 2 games on the docket as we continue to watch Nigel make potentially, we don't even know what kind of history he is making as he wins game after game here at one of the biggest events on North American soil. But it is fascinating to see unfold, Weibin. Always a pleasure to watch Nigel play.